fingering with the right hand, and I have a method that makes it very easy to remember which fingers to use. It basically breaks down the fingerings into two groups. The first group uses keys that use all sharps. Second group uses keys that use all flats. Let's take a look at this. I developed this approach around the idea that there are two distinct motions used when playing major scales on the piano, thus placing the scales in two categories. If we look at the scales in these categories, we see that C major, G, D, A, E, and B major all use the exact same fingering. Plus, you always begin with the thumb, so that makes that very simple. Now in category 2, while it doesn't use the exact same fingering, we'll find that the thumb always will land on the notes F and C. But let's consider category 1 scales first. To demonstrate how all these scales use the same motion, I'll play them one after another, beginning with the C major scale, then moving up sequentially to the right, playing D, E, G, A, B major scales, then ending on a C major an octave higher. Let's take a look at how this fingering works. The numbering for fingers is always the same. Thumb equals 1, index finger 2, middle finger 3, ring finger 4, pinky 5. All scales from category 1 use the same fingering, beginning with the thumb. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tuck the thumb under after 1, 2, 3 to move it to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sequence. The fingers follow the scale C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. The fingering used for the C major scale can now be used for these other scales, G, D, A, E, and B major. G major uses the F sharp as part of its scale. You are using the same fingering, but making the slight adjustment in order to play the F sharp. Here is D major. Now you play both an F sharp and a C sharp as part of the scale. Again, a slight adjustment, but the same fingering is used. A major. Now we add G sharp to the scale. Therefore, you play the black notes C sharp, F sharp, and G sharp as part of the scale. But it's really the same motion with a slight adjustment. E major uses 4 sharps for its scale: F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp. Still using the fingering 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. B major uses 5 sharps: F, C, G, D, and A sharp. Fingering 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 works for this scale too. So we have seen that we can use the same fingering for these different major scales, C, G, D, A, E, and B. And theoretically, this relates to the cycle of fifths, whereas each subsequent key you add another sharp. But our concern here is not about the cycle of fifths. What this is about is the physical aspects of being able to play these scales. And I wanted to figure out a way that make it simpler. So one thing I thought about with this aspect of playing this consistent fingering is if you drummed it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away from playing the keys, that's essentially what the motion is. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. As if, you're drumming it. Now, if you think of it that way, it's just the same thing, and you make some slight adjustments to hit the right accidental. So knowing your cycle of fifths and your keys at this point is really a given. This is not about teaching you the cycle of fifths. It's about showing you that if you just play the same fingering and make a slight adjustment to hit the right accidental for all of these scales, it's possible. So that's why going up in seconds is convenient, because you can just sort of go in a very lateral way. Okay, so you can practice them that way. The other thing that I want to point out is some might be thinking, well, what about the key of F sharp and C sharp? I haven't talked about that if I'm talking about scales that use sharps. Well, for our purposes, F sharp and G flat is exactly the same thing, because we're not thinking and worrying about theory, we're worrying about playing these things on the piano. So F sharp will be dealt with when we talk about G flat, and the same thing with C sharp is dealt with D flat. So those are put into another category because their fingerings are very much share the same qualities, and I'll get to that in video too. But you could practice this in any way you'd like. You could practice it up in seconds. You can go in cycle 5, key of C, G, right, D. But the idea is that it's just still bop, 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 bop.